I wasn't going to make another Captain Marvel video until the review came out next week after I've seen the movie, but given the responses I've received to my last video, I want to clear a few things up because it seems obvious to me there's a little bit of confusion. Not just a misunderstanding, but some actual confusion because I don't think people understood where I was coming from, even though I spelled it out pretty clearly in that video. So the video I made last night was going to be closer to 12 minutes long instead of the 8 minutes or less that it ended up being, because I cut a lot out of it, especially towards the beginning of it, because I spent a lot of time initially explaining all the reasons I was skeptical of this movie in the first place. But I thought that spending so much time explaining all the things that were wrong with this movie, or the people, like Brie Larson, etc., and the pundits, etc., is because all that would get lost in the first half of the video, and by the time people got to the second half, a lot of people would essentially trail off and not get to actually hear that. Plus, I would essentially be repeating what hundreds of people are saying on this very platform itself. So since the video itself was titled, give Captain Marvel a chance, I wanted to fine-tune that video for that explicit argument or set of points in that overall argument. That was the purpose of that video. Given the responses I've received to that video, it seems like a lot of people think I'm like clueless as to what's going on with Captain Marvel, the character, the studio, the media conglomerate, the overall press, etc., etc., etc. I don't want to make a 20-minute long video going over what everyone else is saying, right? That's not the point of this channel. It's not to repeat what everyone else is saying, just to give my duplicate NPC level take of what everyone else is saying, right? That would be dumb. So what I did was I crafted a specific set of points that backed what I was going to say. And essentially I had a more optimistic take for explicit and clear reasons. So let me explain, for those that are a little confused, what I'm not optimistic about. I'm not optimistic about Brie Larson. I'm not optimistic about Disney. I'm not optimistic about the tilted left-wing media and press coverage that this film has received and will continue to receive after it's released. I'm not optimistic that the story itself will be magically apolitical, right? I'm not optimistic that the character won't be overpowered somehow or even exhibit some or many social justice space warrior traits, right? I think we can all kind of figure out that's going on. What I'm optimistic about is Kevin Feige and his editorial control and his final say powers over the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's pretty clear about that in the last video, and I'm reiterating that here. I'm optimistic that Marvel Studios will, in the end, make good decisions about this film and the franchise as a whole, because it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. That's essentially my argument. This studio has a 20-film track record that has gotten better since the beginning. And even some of their worst films weren't that bad. And even though the last Black Panther, Avengers, and Ant-Man film, there has been an editorial control and consistency for the story arc of the universe and how these characters are treated and how the movies treat the audience. Even Black Panther, who we were all told was going to be a bad film, was pretty decent. And the two narratives that were competing were actually both left-wing narratives. And if you know anything about politics, it was essentially a modern liberal versus progressive social justice stereotype, where the bad guys were essentially the Marxists that were going to try to blow things up, right? It was intelligent and it was better than expected. And I'm not going to talk about the potential affirmative action stuff with how it was given Oscars and stuff like that. I don't know. Didn't watch the Oscars. I don't know anything about that. I'm just saying that the film was better than everyone was saying. And I'm saying it's possible that this movie, the final product, may be better than what people are saying, right? That's what I'm saying. So I'm completely aware of the crap fest that led up to this film. I'm fully up to date on the media conglomerates and tech giants suffering from O'Sullivan's Law. And that's where any organization that isn't explicitly right-wing becomes left-wing over time. We've been seeing that in real time for decades. I'm sorry if this is new to some of you that just discovered social justice warriors in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm sorry. I've been aware of this for people before many people watching this video were alive, because I saw all this going on since the 1990s. O'Sullivan's Law came out in like 1988, 89, something like that, when John O'Sullivan coined the term, and he was right, and many of us were aware of that. Remember, I'm a conservative, and I was excited as anyone in seeing this new generation of people, many who aren't even necessarily right-wing, but they can see the same writing on the wall that I can, right? And that writing basically says that they're racist, sexist, misogynist, because they don't want to be insulted by these publications and productions that they pay money for or they otherwise enjoy, like cable TV networks or the movies or whatever, right? So I'm glad that other people are seeing all these organizations essentially turning into these progressive, socialist type of organizations that have explicit political and social and economic objectives, and they're spreading that down to these films and books and comic books and games and all these genres of entertainment. We understand this is going on, and I'm not here patronizing anyone else for discovering this relatively recently. I'm actually glad these people are seeing this, because for decades, conservatives like me were basically railed against for the positions we took on individual freedom, personal, responsibility, and a wide variety of topics that are outside the scope of this video. And I'll even make other videos on this if you guys want. All I'm saying is, when I made this video talking specifically about Captain Marvel and why I personally am treating it a certain way, i.e. I'm not boycotting it, I'm not telling people to not see it, etc. It's because I'm willing to give it a chance. Please keep that in mind. I'm an optimistic person in many ways by default, and I'm not going to magically change that because some people are pissed off at a movie. They may be rightfully pissed off at the movie, or the studio, or the actresses, or what's going to happen to the characters. Totally get that. I'm not you, right? That's all I'm saying. One of the things I want to point out, going back to the movie real quick, is if you notice that as of this video, there aren't any advanced reviews a full week out or more before this movie release, or at least I've not seen any. A lot of the popular YouTubers that I watch, like Stuckman and others, the movie reviews aren't out. Even their spoiler-free, the pre-embargo videos or their embargoed release videos, they haven't come out yet as of the time I'm making this video. We can all see that things are not going well for how this movie is going, okay? So keep in mind, right now, the only people that are positive for this movie work for the movie review industry in one way or the other. Independent bloggers, YouTubers like myself, and everyone else have a bad feeling about this, and honestly, they're very likely right. All I'm arguing is that we see how this movie does, and if it's as terrible as everyone says, that should be a warning shot across the bow to Marvel, not just Disney. They got that with The Last Jedi response. But this should be a shot across the bow to everyone else that the previously highly successful Marvel Cinematic Universe now has problems. And so maybe a boycott is the right thing for this Captain Marvel movie. I'm not going to, attack people that do that. You are your own individual. You will make your own decision based on your own personal ideas of what you think you should do. I'm not here to hate on you for that, right? I'm just here to state what I want to do. So I'm not going into this film blind. There will be consequences to the studio if it is bad. My review of this next week will not be kind to this movie if it is a bad movie. And if it is bad, it will affect my decision to keep seeing movies in this franchise in the future. Just keep in mind that Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home both look good and do not seem to have these sort of controversies. I mean, MJ is a person of color or whatever the vernacular is at this point, and I get there's some issues that may also occur there, but I'll be honest, those trailers look good, and those trailers for Endgame and Spider-Man look better than the Captain Marvel trailer. That's a legitimate reason to not see the movie if the trailer in and of itself isn't good, right? So we're on the same page there. But if Captain Marvel tanks, we may see adjustments in those films as well. So maybe there's a good reason to boycott these films. That said, they may not screw up this film. But if they do, they will pay a price. So anyways, I'm starting to ramble on here. I just want to finish up with my point back on O'Sullivan's Law, essentially the subject of this video, the original subject of this video. Get used to it. It's very hard for a left-wing organization to swing back right. Either they stay left-wing or they collapse. I'm sorry, but that's how it goes. But until that point in time, they take over everything. They take over public schools, they take over the government, they take over corporations, they take over blog sites and everything else. In the meantime, I suggest you vote with your wallet as well as your ballot. Do what you want, right? I'm not here to tell you what to, well, I guess by telling you do what you want, I guess maybe I'm telling you what to do, but I hope you get the point here. I fully support the idea of a boycott, even if I am personally not doing that for this movie. I've already decided to not see a lot of movies anyways on my own. Maybe I'm becoming a stodgy old conservative, and that's what I'm destined to be. But I've made peace with the Star Wars franchise. I wanted to see how Episode 9 goes, but I'm willing to write the whole thing off if that fails too, just like The Last Jedi failed. I made peace with the Star Trek franchise after the debacle that was Discovery. Discovery. So the first 4 episodes of that, I'm gone. Now I've heard about all the issues with essentially all post-2005 Star Trek stuff being no longer part of the original canon, and I've made peace with that. I accept that this is a new canon that I'm not interested in anymore, and I'm no longer seeing any more Star Trek films. So I made peace with Ghostbusters as well, for example, after the debacle that was the 2016 feminist version of that. I heard a lot of my friends didn't like it. I decided, based on everything else around the film, I'm not going to see it either. So I can do that to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. So, anyways, that's all I got to say. I want to thank you for putting up with my somewhat heated response in this, because I think a lot of people that are just new to the channel, or they just see the video and they just reply, they don't know me from Adam. And they think I'm just some sort of soy boy that blah, 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 beta male this, beta male that, whatever. Right, whatever. But I'm a grown man. I have my own opinions, and this is basically what it is. I hope to God they don't screw this film up, but if they do, I'm probably going to walk. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.